Here's a look at sword fern. This is one of our most common ferns in the understory of Washington forests and Pacific Northwest conifer forests in general. Really robust fern. These can get up to about 3 feet tall, and they have very leathery leaves. The fronds are really quite strong, quite tough. And if you were ever going to eat this fern, what you'd want to eat would be the fiddleheads, which come out in the middle of the fern in the spring. You can see some young fronds here unfurling. We call those young fronds fiddleheads because of the way they curl up, like you can see one there, like the end of a fiddle or violin, the violin scroll. So. And then these are the older leaves here that have been out for at least a year. They live, we don't know how long they live, but probably a couple years at least. And after they do photosynthesis for a while, they eventually wear out and die. And you can, if you look down at the base of the fern here, you can find a lot of the old fronds from previous years that are dying out here. And presumably those fertilize the soil around the fern, so I like to leave them there and as they decompose. The way sword fern gets its name is from the individual leaflets on the frond. They look like miniature swords, and you can see this little heel at the base of the leaf that actually looks like the handle of a sword. Compared to some of the other ferns, in particular, you'll need to know lady fern for this class. Lady fern has much more finely divided leaflets. So these leaves are basically have what we call one cut, so one incision here. But if you look at lady ferns, you'll see that each leaflet is cut again with even finer incisions to make little tiny leaflets upon the original larger leaflet. So, and that's one thing we look at with ferns is how finely divided is it? How many little cuts do you see there in the leaflets? And I'll just show you over here. Here is a smaller sword fern, but this gives you a much better view of the fiddleheads forming in the middle here. And so I mentioned in our first lecture that I study sword ferns here in Seattle, and there's been actually a problem with ferns dying throughout this region, sword ferns specifically, and we're trying to figure out why that is. But one of the things we do look for to see if a fern is healthy or not is whether it's putting up new fiddleheads in the spring. So this appears to be a pretty robust and healthy fern. But if they don't put up new fiddleheads in the spring, that can be a sign that the fern is going to be probably dead by the end of the season, which is what we're seeing in a lot of ferns here around Seattle.